Hello out there, my name is Laolu Akonde and you are on to Inside Sources. But first, here's my take for today entitled A Welcome Development at the NNPCL. A welcome development at the NNPCL. About a month ago, a new leadership was announced for the NNPCL with two notable oil and gas experts holding the very top positions. Mr. Bayo Jurari as chief executive and Mr. Amadou Musa Kida as non-executive board chairman. These new appointments were rightly commended, and all you need to do is to look at the pedigrees of these two gentlemen to appreciate that their appointments were such that it could be said to be square pegs in square holes. May our high expectations of their performance not be disappointed. And they have started very well. The latest news from the NNPCL is proof that there is indeed an investigation and termination of some of the past executives, including one former MD of a refinery in whose account 80 billion naira was found. The EFCC, acting dutifully as requested for information on the emoluments of some of the sacked executives to determine the sources of the 80 billion in the account of a public servant who is paid a monthly salary. There are other questions that investigators and the new leadership of NNPCL will try to find an answer to. For instance, the rehabilitation of the refineries, for which close to $3 billion was approved during the past administration, but for which there hasn't been a completion. What happened? There are even more significant questions in the public domain about the way and manner NNPCL has been managed forever since it was NNPC. Not too long ago, while speaking in a chat with Financial Times of London, one of Nigeria's major private sector players, Mr. Tony Elumelu, said that the international oil companies were divesting from onshore assets in the oil and gas industry because of the incredible oil theft debilitating our entire national economy. Without a doubt, there is a deep-seated culture of corruption in the oil and gas sector, including the NNPCL, especially on the public side. We know that displacing that culture will take some time, but we can start somewhere. And this move is a good one by the Kida Ojulari team. We have been so devastated as a nation by the kind of crude oil theft that we have seen over the years. According to the government-owned Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NETI, Nigeria lost approximately 619 million barrels of crude oil, valued at over 16 trillion naira or over $46 billion between 2009 and 2020. Imagine that. Also, the theft reportedly averaged 140,000 barrels per day, valued at over $10 million daily. That was what we were losing. More recently, from Nigeria, we lost 2.1 billion to oil theft in 2019, 1.9 billion in 2020, 7.2 billion in 2021, and 22 billion in 2022. We can only imagine the severe socio-economic distortions and damages that this kind of losses entail, such as reduced government revenue and the attendant inadequate resources for social spending, increased debt with its attendant strain on national planning and human capital development, and so on and so forth. Thankfully, there seems to be a bit of positive movement in the fight against crude oil theft in our country. Yet, we have to ensure that there is much more fundamental transparency in the oil and gas sector generally. So we welcome that shake-up in the NNPCL with a bit of enthusiasm. At least for the first time, we might be able to get to the root causes of the failure of the local refineries if we sustain this kind of hard look at what happened to all those resources that were approved for the refineries over the years, while we suffered the shame of an oil-producing country importing PMS. If you ask anyone with a bit of focus on what happens in the NNPCL, the lifestyle of some of their top executives is completely alarming. The way some of them distribute dollars in this town alone is appalling. And the people are not blind. They know some people are blowing away our commonwealth with reckless abandon. So if the new NNPCL are looking to clean house, a little bit at least, all the people of goodwill of Nigeria should support this initiative, which we are told derives also from a presidential mandate. But the investigation should go all the way. People must be held accountable for there to be a serious dent on the problem of corruption in our country generally. In conclusion, let us recall what has been said here on Inside Sources to Mr. President on the corruption in the NNPCL. Mr. President, you are now in charge. Forget what naysayers say about you and do to NNPC and the oil and gas sector what you did to CBN. You can clean this mess up. The oil industry is the life wire of our economy today. That was what we said in the past. We are restating it. If what we are now seeing happening with the investigation of the past executive of NNPCL, if that is what the president is doing, then there is a good direction in all of this. And we say kudos. And we want the president to ensure, and the leadership of NNPCL, that this investigation goes all the way. And there you have it. Inside Sources will be right back, where we'll be having a full and deep discussion on some issues around the state of the nation. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Like I indicated, today we will be having a full-blown discussion on the state of the nation, looking at a few issues: the situation with insurgency, insecurity, what is happening in Rivers State, and updates around workers' welfare, and possibly we get to all the games and the permutations and the drama around 2027. To join me in that very important discussion today, I have our contributors, Malam Baba Yusuf to my immediate right, strategist, policy advisor, and the group CEO of Global Investment Trade Company. Malam Baba Yusuf, good to see you again.
Good to be here again, Prof.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on his right, we have Mr. Dairu Majid, newspaper columnist for The Sun and a notable TV analyst. Brother Majid, good to see you again.
It's good to be back.
All right. So let's start with you, Majid. Insurgency is back. You know, the governor of Borno State had warned, a few weeks back, and now we've seen what seems to be not a very nice development, So what do you think is happening? How do you read, the situation?
Insurgency never left us. So when you say insurgency is back, I'm wondering whether there was ever a time
but
that we had a break.
The attacks went down considerably.
As been reported. The thing is, when you're in a state of war, the guns don't go off every day of the war. There are moments when warring factions, warring parties will strategize, go under hibernate to launch attacks. So the war is ongoing, and that is the reality. We've been fighting this insurgency for as long as 15 years now, since 2010. And you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. We must change strategy. We must deploy a holistic approach to fighting this insurgency. And I've made a lot of suggestions about that. When you are fighting this kind of war, you cannot always do it with the conventional method that the Nigerian Armed Forces is still applying. And by no means I do not mean the so-called non-kinetic approach. I'm talking about even the kinetic approach. For instance, if you ask me, the insurgency in Borno, I've always maintained, is a religiously motivated insurgency. It's jihadi terrorism. Now, one thing that the Nigerian state must do to contain the ideology behind this insurgency is to carry out, if you like, a reform of the belief system of the people concerned within the larger society.
Okay, when you say the people concerned,
the Muslim community in Nigeria, if you like, the larger society, because I keep making the point that part of the ideological elements that are responsible for the insurgency you are seeing are actually in the mainstream and it's still being watered by mainstream authorities. So from the ideological firmament, something needs to be done. And done urgently, the state must reassert itself. Now, but even in the battlefield, in the field of combat, you cannot be fighting an asymmetrical warfare with a symmetrical method. So for me, something needs to be done about reappraising the combat strategy of the Nigerian Armed Forces. So I think this two-pronged approach must be carried out now. We need some new thinking, some strategic thinking, and I'm sure in the course of the program, we'll explore specific options and solutions to these problems.
Okay, all right, thank you. Madam, your take.
Yeah, the word I use is resurgence. I totally agree with you. It never went away. It's resurging. And to add to what Mr. Daire said, it's a function of an overarching strategy, not of the state, but of the terrorists and insurgents. It's a classic playbook strategy of guerrilla warfare. It's a classic playbook strategy of fundamental Islamist jihadist playbook. So I'm surprised that whether it is the authorities or Nigerians are seeing it from that perspective of it has gone away. And if you say that, then I worry about our national security strategy, because every country or every society that is serious has always left a module within the overarching strategy of continuous sensing strategy of countermanding the recurrence or the resurgence or whatever it is that is a threat. America had to develop the homeland security, for example, and expand that scope, and have even espionage and counter-espionage. It never goes away. But I would like to expand also on what Mr. Ahir said with the issue of when we look at the dimensional, by the way, it's multidimensional. If we see it from a linear prism, also will not solve the problem. Because over time, Islamic fundamentalism being the key motivation for terrorism, whether it is in the Middle East, whether in the 9/11, whether it is how it has expanded and became a global enterprise, as the case is an enterprise, has become commoditized and commercialized. So indeed, as a Muslim I know, the fundamentality has long been thrown away and has become a facade for a global enterprise. And that is why we have seen the evidence of critical stake actors of the superpowers coming to say they have actually been supporting Islamic jihadists as a smokescreen for plundering resources of many countries. And unless we dimension this multidimensionally, while we address this very important issue Mr. Tahir said about the jihadists, because we remain what I call a nascent Islamic entity in terms of Sahel, in terms of northern Nigeria. There's a lot of cultural input in it, and there's a lot of misconception about Islam itself. But suffice it to say, the commercial aspect of it has actually overtaken it, and that is why the deep state aspect of it, some of us are afraid to talk about it, while some of us throw it aside. But the critical fuel of whether it is jihadism or whether it is whatever is actually resources. And to that extent, that is why you marvel to see the kind of humongous amount of resources this guy gets in the hinterland, in terms of the satellite phones, in terms of the technology, in terms of the armaments, in terms of logistics, that are even beyond the capacity of countries like Nigeria to manage. So talking about that to land, I agree also, approaching an asymmetric warfare, whether it is Islamic fundamentalism or, for commercial purpose, with this approach, when you don't have the resources. And that is why in my column for Friday on The Nation, I said, the back page, I said, it is no longer an asymmetric warfare. If we see it like that, it has tilted to terrorists because they have more resources, they are covering more grounds, they have a better strategy, while we have less than 300 boots on the ground armed forces to cater for over 200 million people, and we think it is okay, you understand, without the capacity to even buy one equipment, that this guy can buy 3 when you don't know where the money comes from, is no longer asymmetric warfare on our side, because we are now on low ground, while this multidimensional octopus has become on the high ground. You see these guys even collaborating. The way you have M&E in private sector, mergers and acquisitions. You have ISWAP, you have Boko Haram, you have whatever, and then you have the Lakurawas, and then the mineral exploiters doing collaborations where it suits them
So
to continue to plunder resources. So I dare say, whether it is jihadist fundamentalism, whether it is the herders, settlers issue of the Fulani and the herders, whether it is the issue of other people that are not even having any name, it's about our resources, because as it is today, the entire Sahel belt is sitting on humongous amount of resources. And it will interest you to see that is what is happening in DRC, that's what is happening in Sudan, that's what is happening in South Sudan. But bringing it to Nigeria, unless we realign we see it from a prism, rather than from a linear lens, we'll still have this problem.
Very, very interesting openings by both of you. Now, I recall that the last time that the Chief of Defense Staff, I saw him on I think it was on our station here, and also probably one of these foreign, probably BBC Art Talk. He was alluding to the international dimension. He was asking the question that, look, I mean, there seems to be some foreign backing, some solid foreign backing, based on what they have seen on the ground, which is also, which aligns with what both of you have said. So my own take, is that, yes, it could be fun, it could be Islamic fundamentalism, it could be an enterprise, it could be even international imposed kind of assault on our sovereignty. It could be a quest to take over our resources. It could be all of that. But I think, and both of you hinted it, the most important thing is that we have to find a means to contain it. And we haven't been able to do that in a significant way for the most part. And one of the problems that I don't understand why it is so difficult for us to break that back of that problem is recruiting the troops on the ground. We don't even have enough people on the ground. I think it was Senator Ndume who said recently that we need at least 1,000 MRAPs. Why can't we get them? If that's what we need, why can't we get them? Why is it difficult for us to even get the troops? Why can't we? I mean, if we are fighting a war, like Dairu said, since 2010, 2011, how come we have not, how many years is there now?
15, 14 years.
How come we have not mastered how to do quick recruitment? How come we are still depending on how we used? I mean, somebody made the point that during the Civil War, that both in Biafra and the federal troops, there was a system where you quickly recruited people to the army. Why is that not happening? I mean, so this is some of the things that I find very confusing, especially when our generals understand that this thing might be foreign backed. We must treat it as existential and do what we need to do. I don't accept. And then we move on, but I'll let you still make further comments if you want. I don't accept that we don't have the resources. I don't accept it. We have the resources. I mean, we have the resources to put up a fight for the survival and the sustenance of our country. I don't think that we don't have resources. But I'll let you guys make quick comments if you want to before we go to the next topic.
I can feel your frustration. I mean, I can feel it's quite palpable. But see, the problem is beyond just resources. It's beyond just boots on the ground. If you empty the Atlantic Ocean into a basket, you don't get a pint of water. Meaning, if you are actually putting effort into something that is actually draining, that has the capacity to drain all of the effort you can ever put in, it's a problem. That is the reason why Nigeria is the most vulnerable country in the southern flank of the Sahel when it comes to jihadi terrorism, for instance. How come jihadism does not make a landfall in Togo? in Ghana,
Yeah, of course.
in Benin
It's our
Republic,
resources.
in Gambia,
Sierra Leone.
in Sierra Leone, in Senegal. These are two Muslim majority countries, Senegal and Gambia. How come they don't make landfalls there? How come they're not even making landfall in Egypt? How come they are largely contained in the upper part of the Maghreb? In Egypt, in Tunisia, in Nigeria. Why is Nigeria this vulnerable to?
Or where is Nigeria a target?
No, I think it's vulnerability.
Okay.
Every country is a target. For example, if you have criminals looking around this environment, every house is a target. It depends how you fortify your own environment. It's as simple as that. So if yours is vulnerable, they will enter.
But you don't think that places like Senegal, and we are, you know, just to about, you don't think that places like Senegal, Nigeria is more vulnerable, you know, because I think that
again,
because of our resources, the fact that we have more resources.
It's a matter of vulnerability, and I will explain why. Nigeria is a country of contradictions that has not been able to resolve it for as long as I can remember, for as long as I have been alive. So what you see happening across the country, from the northwest to the northeast to the south, everywhere,
our contradictions
is a violent manifestation of these contradictions.
The tensions.
Now, unlike Senegal, unlike the Gambia, unlike Ghana,
there are more.
These countries have been able to, in spite of being black African countries, reasonably, to some reasonable extent also, have been able to resolve their internal contradictions enough to forge a fairly united, socially cohesive nation. Something that Nigeria has not been able to do since 1960. And so Nigeria is like a household that is not a family. So it's all man to himself. Such a household, even if you put 10,000 security men at the gate,
okay, all
it requires is to do what happened to the Chinese wall, when people simply break their way to come in.
To enter. All right, any take before we go on?
Yeah, I like that analogy of Nigeria being a household without being a family. Very apt. But I still maintain the position, and I'll tell you why now, real quick. The entire issue about global insecurity is predicated on resources. And it goes back to the genesis of slavery, to the genesis of colonization. And by colonization, by the way, we make a lot of cry and hue about colonialism, Western colonialism. There has been colonialism even from the East, from the Arabian Peninsula. It's colonialism.
There was already internal colonialism.
There is internal colonialism even within ethnicity. So let's not forget that. And it has always been about resources, whether it is within the microcosm of Nigeria or outside. So I align with what both of you said, more leaning towards what I said earlier and what you alluded to. It's about resources. And we have evidential facts. With regards to vulnerabilities or, what is the other word? Vulnerability versus threat. Target, thank you very much. Very important perspective. Both are correct. But in order for us to work towards the actual solution, I agree to more of vulnerabilities. Ghana, Gambia, Senegal, with due respect to, including Tunisia and even Egypt, are nowhere near Nigeria in terms of resources. Nowhere. In terms of resources around the Sahel belt, right? If you inch towards Eastern Africa, the only country that we can back off of has been in crisis till tomorrow, and that is DRC. Because of the immense resources there. It has always, and you can take it further to confirm that with what happened in Libya, with the assertions of the former Secretary of State of the United States of America, Senator Hillary Clinton. You can take it further to see what happened in Iraq with the Phantom War, and see what is happening in DRC with America now coming. You can see the hands playing out today with what happened in Ukraine or what's happening in Ukraine. People are being pushed to the wall because of what they have there, and be made now to formalize what we are seeing in the form, give us your metals, we'll protect you. Albeit the crisis was created by those forces of occupation who have now expanded their strategy to have these people that are in the front as a smoke screen. And why I'm telling us this is, if we don't see beyond those smoke screens, we can have 1,000 MRAPs, as it has been demonstrated and evidenced. The deep states who are actually representing the real states will continue to ensure that we don't have the resources. You have been in the United States for a long time. You are a journalist, and we all know the attempt to procure weaponry during the time of President Goodluck Jonathan and the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, and how the United States was dragging feet to provide those armaments, right? So we should, be very practical and pragmatic about this. And then when we go further, we'll see the dynamics of how a Tunisia or an Egypt and whatever are not facing the threats we are facing, but the attack is not on them. The vulnerability is now in Gaza, which is a fulcrum for the Arabian Peninsula, and the dynamics of how Saudi Arabia and others are playing ball with the Western world. But coming back to Nigeria, which is my key issue here, we should look at it from that perspective from time immemorial. That is how Christianity came from the south, Islam came from the north. It is all about our resources, right? So if we don't see it from that perspective, to even say why are we not suddenly having problem in Plateau and in Benue? I have plowed that area from as far back as 1992-93. We know the Tantalite and the Bearites and the Tourmaline who were trading at that time. And we will just see, we will ask ourselves, in the throat of Jore, we will see Germans. We will see Chinese people there as far back as 30 years ago. So it's all about resources. But then we are now going back to what Mr. Tahiru said. Our strength has become our weakness. Or what should be our strength is now our weakness. And that is the issue that we should also add in looking at the overall issues.
Yeah, so what it is then, of course, in a very simple way, is that, it's a multifaceted
very, very much so
challenge, And
just to add a little, he mentioned DRC, which is very interesting, a very good example. Part of the problems of the DRC is also its unresolved contradictions. So, for instance, the DRC has suffered many years of identity-driven conflict. You see, when you have identity dissonance within a territorial framework, it makes you vulnerable. That is, people can just come in because you're not a nation. So DRC, like Nigeria, and like Iraq, like you mentioned, Iraq is a country that is splintered along two major nationalities, the Shiites and the Muslims. And if you like, you add the third, the Kurds. Now, if you go to nearby Syria, what has destabilized Syria, for instance? It is this same issue of contention of power between the Alawite Shiite Muslims, minority, and the majority Sunnis. Any country that is unable to resolve this identity dissonance and make it a resonance, and make it a nation state.
Well, I see
because every country is potentially a target. Look at the M23.
And that's my point. Look
at the M23 crisis in DRC now. It's revolved around the Tutsi ethnicity and the self-determination of that group, supported by a Tutsi-controlled country called Rwanda. So Africa has not been able to navigate this corner. South Africa has been successful to some extent. Botswana has been successful. Other countries you see that have been able to ward off these threats.
Even in South Africa, have been successful. Now you have people like Elon Musk trying to get the Americans to cause trouble there. So I think the conclusion of the matter is that, in my view, that all those factors are there. Probably one weighs more than the other. But we should have a holistic approach, whether it's our resources, how to protect it. Why are we a target? Because we are vulnerable. We are an easier target. And then, of course, to deal with the question of fundamentalism. So it has to be an all motivated approach. Let's move on to the situation in Rivers State. So there was some news which I don't think is confirmed, but it's out there that Governor Fubara and Minister Wike had a secret meeting in Abuja. Somebody went on TV to say, I don't know whether you guys also heard that, but there'll be a counter that, that Fubara is actually still in London. He just came back, maybe a few days ago. So, but the question that I would like us to ask, and then, depending on how you want to take it, is that, how do you think this thing is going to end? Are we going to have a situation where, the people of Rivers State are going to get their thing back? Look at what happened recently, 2 days ago, the women, trying to assert themselves that, look, they told us that it's going to be the first lady of Rivers State that will be at the event, and we saw somebody else, and quite a bit of unnecessary distraction in that state. So And then, of course, we also know that the president, I think that is confirmed, that the president and Fubara actually met, I think in London. So what's your take? Where is this going? Let's start with who spoke last? Okay, Tahiru.
I'm laughing.
Yes.
It's a comedy of the absurd really happening in Rivers State. Well, the report by Premium Times that Fubara met with
the president.
Not just with the president, but with the minister of the FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike, has not been actually denied by any authoritative source from the side of Fubara.
Okay.
So, for the purpose of the conversation, we take it to be true. It only tells you something. And I've always maintained the point that, you see, in the crisis between Fubara and former Governor Wike, over the control of Rivers State, there are no heroes between the two of them, among the two.
I agree.
They are all villains. Look, Fubara is a product of a system that has held not just Rivers State, but the entire country by the jugular through the instrumentality, the weaponization of patronage as a raw system for identity politics. It's as simple as that. He cannot extricate himself from that. What has happened over time is you have godfathers installing godsons, and then the godsons will annihilate their godfathers, like those like Lion Kings, and become godfathers for themselves, and then to get annihilated. It has been a revolving cycle.
Right.
So that is the best that can come out of this. But for the Rivers people, I think they're still wasting their time queuing up behind Fubara to challenge what they perceive as godfatherism. And I said that is the wrong strategy. You are making a mistake. What the Rivers people are supposed to do, are seem to be doing now, is to do what Anambra people did in 2003.
Who?
Anambra people.
Anambra people, okay.
And what other people did in 2023, for instance. And what was it? Very simple. In 2003, Anambra State was being governed by Mbadiniju. And the state was rendered prostrate by the excessive demands of the godfathers and all that. We saw the crisis to the extent that Mbadiniju left a wage backlog for public servants of about 3 years going to the election in 2003. And so the Anambra people came together and said the solution to our problem is to put an end to PDP and godfatherism in this state.
Yeah.
And so they queued behind a fringe candidate on a fringe party called ABGA. The candidate was called Peter Obi.
Yeah.
And they voted for him, even though he was rigged out, but because he was voted for, he gathered his evidence, going to court, and reclaimed his mandate. Yeah. Anambra has remained in the
ABGA
since then to today. You can win Senate from Anambra as PDP. You can win House of Reps.
But not governor.
You should have governor. And
because the people stood up.
Each of the governors have largely abided by that unwritten code. You do your bit and you leave. If you observe, when Obi left, and there was a bit of a cold shoulder from his successor, he decamped to the PDP and attempted to move through the ballot only.
Yeah.
Even at that, he didn't win, he didn't succeed. Now, in fact, Obiano is almost absent in Anambra affairs, even though he was instrumental to bringing in Soludo. You hardly see him, no noise, nothing is happening, because you understand how the people have been able to recover their states. Abia did it in 2023 when they brought in Alex Oti to Labour Party. Rivers must develop the discipline to look beyond dollars and pound sterling and naira. And similarly look for an Omoluabi candidate, kind of, amongst them, and railroad the person to power and end the Odili dynasty to which both Fubara and Wike belongs. Because the Fubara accused behind has gone to beg the man who we all criticize for the crisis of emergency in the state. Yeah. The state of emergency you are protesting. Now women are protesting against the wife of the administrator. The man that declared it, that brought it into existence. Your leader or the person you are supporting has gone to beg him in London. And he was referred to go and beg his godfather. And he has gone to beg. I cannot say the kind of things that I read about the way he begged his godfather. So it tells you that this is not about
Why
you.
Why can't you say it?
He was said to have held his leg.
You know, and it's up to him to deny it.
He has not.
That's what I'm saying.
So I take it that is true. That he held his legs and was begging. So on whose behalf are you really protesting in Rivers? The elders of Rivers, on this Fubara's behalf, that will be making all this noise and trying to make it look like Wike is the bad guy. So He has thrown you under the bus, and this is not the first time. He has severally thrown you under the bus because he's a member of that establishment. And let me say this. Among bandits, there must be honor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I say.
If I will not be a loyal godson, I, Majid Dahiru, will not accept the benevolence of a godfather to make me governor or anything like that. So there's even honor and integrity in doing the wrong thing sometimes.
Okay.
By being faithful to the wrong thing you are doing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's actually an idiomatic saying that, yeah, among thieves, I think it's an English saying that among thieves there's honor. Madam.
The interesting scenario in Rivers is going to be another case study, like I said, in our political, studies and political history. I said exactly what it aligns with exactly what Mr. Ahiru said with regards to the relationship between His Excellency Wike and Excellency Fubara. And I think that should be the point. The Rivers people and Nigeria should look at it, not just looking at the end. Yeah. What was the beginning that led to where we are? And then potentially what would be the end? And I started by reminding us that Fubara, Rivers State people, they should remember, they challenged the outcome of the elections, gubernatorial elections in Rivers from the beginning because of the allegations of rigging and all that, which members of the establishment said to the public clear, we rigged into office, whatever, water under the bridge.
Yeah.
Fubara was Accountant General under Wike, appointed by who? Wike, a low-scale, middle-cadre civil servant, taken out amongst others that could have been more qualified, made governor. You cannot wake up and go and take clean white cloth and wash it in a gutter and say it should be white. Those that go for equity should go with clean hands. The case of Fubara is total lack of strategy, total lack of loyalty.
Although both himself and Wike...
let me land,
okay.
Please. And total lack of what I call common sense. I say it with due respect.
Yes.
So Fubara cannot come and go through that process. Don't forget that Wike hid him in government house when EFCC was hunting him all about. So if Fubara realized that Mr. Wike is overbearing and he cannot take it anymore, the honorable thing to do, and I say it with all sense of responsibility, without caring to the idealism of whether you are a Wike man or a Fubara man, the honorable thing to do is what Alhaji Abubakar Rimi did in 1983. And I'll tell you what he did. He became a governor on PRP, People's Redemption Party, which was just like MPP today in Kano. Right. It was an opposition party led by late Malam Aminu Kano. Right. Now he became the governor in 1979. Over time, issues happened, and the PRP became factionalized. Right. We had the Sensi and we had the Tabo. Tabo was like mud. Mud means firm, loyal to Malam Aminu Kano, the conservative PRP. And then you have the progressive PIP, which was created by Rimi, called Sensi. Sensi means slippery, that they will not be held by Tabo the mud. Now, what happened, build up to 1983 elections, it was very clear to Rimi, and that is the lesson for Fubara and everybody. If you don't want to be controlled by your political godfather, walk away.
Set yourself free.
Set yourself free. Either you align, and I'll give you a person that outsmarted his political godfather, or you go out. Build up to elections, Rimi looked at the permutations. He did not have hold of, even though he was doing local government elections, trying to do whatever, Malam Aminu Kano was a super political colossus he could not upstage. So he borrowed himself, says early enough, to be a practical and pragmatic political expert with sagacity to say, the right and honorable thing for me to do is to test my political power and keep my integrity and face intact. And he resigned as MD, as governor.
And aligned with...
Check it out. He resigned as governor of Kano State.
Which party did
and joined the MPP, the governor of Chief Nnamdi Azikiwe, and moved on to contest election while his deputy became the governor, and that is Alhaji Abdullah Tofa, became the governor of Kano State. He contested election. He lost the election, of course, obviously. Malam Aminu Kano brought Sabo Bakinzo, who took over and became governor. But what is the lesson here? Rimi later evolved as a political colossus in this country, while Fubara may likely be out from now. It's highly unlikely he comes back. But what did Ganduje do? Ganduje is working under a super personality like Wike in the person of Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Ganduje has been understudying. He's a political, understudy of Kwankwaso.
Ganduje is the one that outsmarted the...
Absolutely. That's the two scenario. What did Ganduje do? Ganduje outsmarted, or rather outlived his tenure. Was able to survive Kwankwaso. I don't know if he's going to outsmart him for long, but he has been able to stay for 2 terms. He had to apply 4 qualities which most of the governors of Lagos State have applied over the years. And the one that tried to stray, we know what happened to him, and that's Akinwun Ambode. Patience. Second one, again, patience. Third one, again, political strategy. The third one is using the instrument of time. And Ganduje stayed on, was able to secure his second term in his hands. So he has survived 4 years of whatever it is, since he has been eating whatever it is for many years. First term, Minister of Defense, he's been following. And in fairness, the benevolence that Mr. Adahid is talking about of a Kwankwaso, over time he has been supporting Ganduje for whatever it's worth. That should be recognized. So for that tutelage, Ganduje, stayed on for 4 years and then manifested himself in second term. There's nothing you can do anyway.
Okay.
The rest is history. He's now playing as the national chairman of the mainstream party and relevant at the political scene. What happened to Ladoja? Ladoja has gone. Fubara is going. So the lesson here is, if it place is too hot for you, get out. Okay. If not, you have to find a way to apply emotional intelligence to survive. But by and large, let me land with this. The people of reserves also, because of bread and butter politics, have decided to block their ears and close their eyes. Like I always say in this place and other places, Wike and Fubara and their likes, politicians will always settle their quarrel. They sit on boards together, they invest in the same organizations, they even intermarry. You will see how Wike and Fubara later will settle their issues and move on. While these people that are supposed to see through this and do what happened in Abia, 2003, like Mr. Iris, and do what happened in Anambra, are busy playing into the hands of the people still that were actually together doing the same thing over the years. So I think the people of reserves should see through this. Shouldn't be a fight between Fubara and Wike. It should be the fight for the soul of Rivers State.
All right, good. So that we can move on. Very, very interesting insights that both of you have shared, and I think it's quite it's useful. You are offering all of them very useful political consultancy and quite a bit of historical dimensions to it. What worries me in all of this is what has been the evolution of self-centered, politicians and politics in Nigeria, and not that there is no place where you don't have, political elites being selfish, but that we've had in this country illustrious politicians, who, in spite of their weaknesses, you could clearly say that they had a very distinguished sense of public value. It has happened in this country.
I agree.
Even when we're talking about the issue of coercion, yes, we've dealt with a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of tension, but there are moments. There are moments in this country where we are able to rise up as one. Part of the reasons, in my view, why that has been difficult is because our elites, they would rather come together around their personal interest. Okay? Because when we talk about all this ethnicity, all this, even whether it's religious or regional, what it comes down to is the selfishness and the personal aggrandizement of political leaders. Because they will align when it is.
Now the question you should ask is, how come they're not able, how come they get away with it?
Yeah, of course. We will get to that point. But I wanted us to make the point as strongly as possible that even the major problems that we have as a people is because our political leaders don't find alliance around common good.
That's what I said. There's a sociology to that. And it's important we address it. An average Nigerian has been socialized to align their democratic choices with their ethnicity and religion. It's fundamental.
I know that.
And so the leaders we are talking about
yes,
often pose as champions of this sentiment.
which is fake. Do
Obviously,
you understand? They're not championing anything, really.
And
what they are championing is
that's why I said
so that they can
we
take
have been so. We need to break that socialization, and I'll tell you how to do it. We have been socialized. Most of the pundits you see posing as nationalists, speaking to issues, when it comes to election, they will go into the cocoon of their ethnicity and religion and take that decision. That's the reality. I say this because I describe myself as a politically exposed journalist. So I understand how decisions are taken. It's not based on any collective good or agenda for national development, zero. This is where we need to break the cycle. I know how. You see, the weakest link in our democratic exercise so far, or value chain of our democracy, has been the political party system. The PDP and the APC organizes its membership along identity lines. Very dangerous, but we don't know, it's so normalized. And there is no other party I know of that does the opposite. How do I mean, sir? I live in Abuja, for instance. I own property here. My family is here. I am originally from a place called Kogi, according to the Nigerian context. In a year, 365 days, I spend less than 10 days cumulatively in that place. I spend more time here. But guess what? If I'm to contest election today, or to join a political party formally, I'll be required to go and register from your ward. Instead of to register in the ward I belong to in Abuja, that I don't even know anyway because I'm not interested, I will go back to my place of origin, down to the interior, close to probably River Niger, and go and register in my ward. That is the requirement of the conservative parties. Now, there's now a misalignment between my economy as a media practitioner and my politics. So what I'm now doing is the politics of how I'm going to take advantage of that system to benefit from the allocation that is coming to the state, to the federal constituency, to the assemblies, resource sharing. I go there, maybe it's the turn of my own community, for instance. Our son is in Abuja, he has come home. They will enroll me into power. I'll come back and reside in Abuja and barely visit home and continue to transact. When I come to the National Assembly, for instance, and I'm a member of the National Assembly and I go for oversight, I'm not going there to oversee anything that is in the benefit of the entire Nigerians. I'm going to see the crumbs I'm going to be able to pick from this mess that is already there to service that interest. All I need to do is to pick a few people that are my champions, empower them a little. They will help me secure the base because the base does not have any other alternative. Any other party telling them this person is taking advantage of you, as you have just said. It does not exist. It doesn't. I have told Nigerians that look, to rescue our democracy and consolidate on it, we need to now form what is called the real political party that was the brain box of our democracy, that cannot bring about the kind of realization you just pointed out. Until that is achieved, you see the PDP, the APC, and all of them will keep rolling Nigeria aground.
Okay, so that's a very good segue to move to our final point, I think, because of our time. 2027. Now, I have tried, in my own little corner, to champion an elite consensus. Because prior to my joining government, I had very, 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 important ideas and values about the capacity of this country, about the potential of this country. When APC was forming in 2013, 2014, it was very exciting, and eventually Buhari emerged. And when Buhari picked Oshibajo, I thought that, look, I mean, if they're going to make somebody like Oshibajo vice president, I think these people, they know what they're doing. So we campaigned, we won the election. 8 years after, I'm asking myself, what has happened? And it turns out, from the experience, and it's my experience government that gives me this confidence. Look, these people, you're right, they are not enemies.
No, they are not.
If you look at a normal corruption charge sheet, you will find national character there.
Yes, so.
Do you understand?
Yes.
At the
light level.
Balanced
at
one.
this level, and I like your point, that the people are being socialized in a particular way.
They are the enablers.
By the elite.
They are the enablers of this.
Who then tease them of
this
things.
Of this elite conspiracy.
Exactly, for their own good. Now,
nobody has been able to decentralize them.
So
otherwise,
yeah, well, I will take it to Malam now as we begin to conclude. What is going to be different in 2027 based on what all that is happening and what we have discussed this evening? What do you think is going to be different? And if at all there will, Malam.
To be honest, to break up, to burst our bubbles, I don't expect anything different because we are seeing what is already happening within the APC itself. We are seeing what is happening in PDP, Labour Party, and others. And we are seeing what will happen with the so-called, what do you call it now? Coalition. Which to me looks like the scenario of Andrew Liver Salt in water. Because if you see the approach of the coalition also speaks volume and aligns completely, 100% with what you are saying, Prof, and what Mr. Tahir is saying. The conspiracy, like Tahir calls it, of the elites.
Yeah.
So I don't foresee any drastic change, especially because at this particular time in our political evolution, we have a personality called President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That is a master strategist that has understood this concept that Mr. Tahir is talking about and what you have also asserted on and what I have been saying many times, and has understood the permutations and combinations of winning elections in Nigeria and has gotten co-travelers that are strong in that regard. And now what you are going to see is a potential political suicide within the political class that will start eliminating them. My father used to say something, may God bless his soul, build up after President Buhari got into power and he was not happy with what was happening.
Right.
And sometimes we brainstorm, may God bless his soul. And he said, I was very energized. And he said, my son, relax. He said, you see, my father is contemporary of the IBs. And he said, you see what, Baba? Go and continue building capacity and the scope and the dimension of your thinking, get people that are in your peers to think alike and forget about people like us in our time. And if truly as an elite child, you are thinking this way, get colleagues to think that way, but don't just think and talk about it, prepare. If you don't prepare, some of you, the elites, are grooming their children to continue what they are doing, which is obviously what we are seeing, right? But there is a factor that God has given all of us that you people, the progressives, quote and unquote, should lean on, and that is time. God has created 3 to 4 elements, my father said, that are crucial for change makers to seize, and they have seized them over time to bring change. One of them is time. But we say, look at me. The IBBs, the Abdesalamis, all of us. You see, even the Buharis and all of them. I say, even the Jagabas, they are already at the twilight of their time, whether they like it or not. Some of them, it will come to a time whether they can only be coordinating from their houses, they cannot go out. So the issue of time, the issue of life and death, he said, if the time does not take them out, the time of death will come, which death will come. That is death. God created death. Nobody will live forever.
That's mortality.
Mortality, thank you. 2 is time. Time will lead to mortality. He said the third one is age. No matter how you want to superglue yourself, we see Paul Biya in Cameroon, right? Yeah. Paul Biya one day will have to go. Museveni will have to go. But what happens, what my father is saying, if you don't prepare, when Museveni goes or Paul Biya goes, their children or their co-travelers will take over and the vicious cycle will continue. Some years now on, he has passed away, and this is the reality. So potentially in 2007, the political suicide I'm talking about is the El-Rufais have become activists today and his co-travelers. Meanwhile, they are partakers in what we are here today for. And they are selling dummies to the people of Nigeria. And you see people jubilating and thronging behind these people. Just like what is happening between Wike and Fubara in Rivers. And that is what is continuing to happen, whether it is President Tinubu, which is most likely is going to get his second term, or any other party manifest may even be worse than President Tinubu. Because the issue is not even taking power in Nigeria. The point is that the way and manner we are wired, when they take power, there is no pressure that will make them to do the needful. And that is where I will land. It is not about the political party. It is about the political system. Because it is a system that will manifest the political party. If you go back to the First Republic, which we keep on going back to, whether it is good or bad, is a better time than now. The parliamentary system suits this socialization factor that Mr. Dairo has addressed, as we could see during the time of regional governments, during the parliamentary system of First Republic. Of course, we can't do that now because the states are there, but we can still have a parliament system that will dilute this presidential system that is too expensive, that gives too much power to the center to the extent that a president doesn't care what you do, because when he is there, he can press a button and everybody will go mute. But essentially, the people of Nigeria should wake up, smell the coffee. All the politicians in all the political parties are friends and allies and partners. They are playing Nollywood with us.
Thank you so much. Do you like me 30 seconds, or if you have any point, because I'm wrapping it up.
Oh, okay, well, I would just like you said, we will not see any difference when it comes to impact in the lives of the Nigerian people in terms of improved welfare and security, because if you observe, the coalition, for instance, right now is coming from a section of the country. Ethno-religious sentiments are being used to whip up sentiment against the president.
That's socialization.
Yeah. Now, across the South, you're going to see more movement of governors from the PDP that are largely domiciled in the South to the APC to also show support for one of their own in power.
Yeah.
And if the race becomes a North-South dichotomy, all other issues such as improved welfare and security will be lost to the position of, we don't want it to dominate us, it is our turn.
And it gets even worse, you know, just to wrap up everything we've said, because it then, deepens our vulnerability.
Then Nigeria will now become worse off the next dispensation.
Even in terms of
security and all everything. Because whoever loses this election will feel lost, and it's always a zero-sum game.
Okay, thank you so much, Malam Baba Yusuf and Mr. Dairu Majid, for we've had a very insightful conversation today. I think it's good when we have time, so that the discussion can become very deep. And thank you so much for coming to Inside Sources today. And today has been quite a very insightful conversation that we've had, and it is setting all of us thinking. We will continue to give out information because we know that information is power, so that we can reduce the gullibility of the Nigerian people, so that one day will be one day. Thank you for watching Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. It means that Nigeria will win because we will not relent. My name is Laulu Akonde. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next edition by the grace of God.